I'm Ellen March. This is Sulky of America's So What? And this is our chance to chat with each other and talk about what we've been sewing, talk about, how we're dealing with our quarantining, our isolation, our, staying at home orders, and what we are sewing while we're staying at home. Thank you, everybody, for chiming in and letting me know that you couldn't see me. Thankfully, you could hear what was going on. So, one of these days I'll get it right. Okay, so today I want to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is cross-stitching. I don't know how many of you out there do cross-stitching, if you consider yourself a cross-stitcher. Maybe you did some cross-stitch in the past. Maybe that was your gateway into sewing. Let me know in the comments because I would love to hear, because I think that cross-stitch is really making a comeback. There are tons of cross-stitchers on YouTube. They actually have channels called Floss Tube because they mostly use embroidery floss, right, to do cross-stitching. Well, I have discovered, along with several of the floss tubers out there in the universe, that Sulky 12-weight cotton petites is the perfect thread to replace floss for cross-stitching. So over the past few weeks, I have been testing this out, and I have been kind of getting some people on the bandwagon, some designers out there who love to do cross-stitch, sending them some of the cotton petites to see how they like it. And guess what, guys? They love it. So if you are someone who does a lot of hand embroidery, maybe you are already turned on to the Sulky 12-weight cotton petites. However, I'm just going to give you a little overview of why you would want to choose this spool of thread over a skein of floss, whether it's hand embroidery, cross stitch, handwork, needlework. People even are using it for tatting. Let me just tell you some key points here. Now, first of all, it comes on a spool, right? So not only can you use it for handwork, but then you can go and turn around and put it on your machine and also use it for machine work. You can elongate your stitches, use a larger needle. You can do big stitch quilting, sashiko work, top stitching, using the same thing that you're using for your handwork. So it does double duty. Love that. Also, because it comes on this spool, you're not having to contend with all those strands of floss that you have to separate and count. And then inevitably you get this big knot because you're separating these strands of floss. And all you have to do is unwind it from the spool. Now, it also comes, like all Sulky thread does, on a snap spool. Either one of these ends opens up, snaps open, and contains the end of your thread. So when you go to organize your spools, when you go to put it away, it's not just dangling there. You wind it up into that little snap end, push it closed, and that sucker's not going anywhere. You cannot do that with floss. So those are some of the benefits. Another benefit is that this 12-weight cotton equals 2 strands of embroidery floss, traditional embroidery floss. That's how thick it is. So for some handwork that would normally require 2 strands, all you have to do is use 1 strand of this guy, and you have a lot less to contend with while you're sewing. Same goes, obviously, if you need 4 strands, 2 strands of this, lot easier to sew with. So I happen to love it for handwork. And with all this cross-stitch research and cross-stitch project development that I have been doing, I have found that all the cross-stitchers I give this to convert totally to Sulky. So that being said, I wanted to talk about a few resources that Sulky now has out there for cross-stitchers who are already existing cross-stitchers, and for some of you who may want to add cross-stitch back into your life or start doing cross-stitch from the beginning. So cross stitch always reminds me when I was really little, my mom always had a cross stitch project on her lap. At night when we were watching TV, when we had family game night, things like that. You know, some people are always knitting all the time. My mom always had a cross stitch project. And it was always very sort of country inspired or cute little alphabet samplers that she would do. Actually have, I wish I would have brought it over here because it's kind of far away in my sewing room, but I have a cross stitch piece that is a scene of a sewing machine and it's all vintage and it has the vintage stork scissors on it. And man, I don't know how long that took, but it is the most beautiful thing. And it's become a family heirloom. So that's the other thing about cross stitch is it does take a long time depending on the scope of your pattern, of course, just like anything does. Just like any handwork project is going to take you a while to complete. And I have really found that cross stitch, you know, it kind of gets you in the zone. You get in sort of this Zen moment of stitching because unlike hand embroidery, you're using the same type of stitch for every little square of your cross stitch design. You don't have to worry like, oh, was I supposed to switch to a lazy daisy here? And I just keep doing back stitches and now I got to rip stuff out. They're all just cross stitches and they're all combining to create this really cool piece. So what we have, what I first want to talk about with you and what is brand new on the Sulky website is a cross stitching kit. Now, all right, I'm coming back because evidently the sound is going out when I'm sharing photos with you. So I will show photos only for very short amounts of time, and then I will come back to talk to you because I want you to see what I'm talking about. And I thought that that was going to be a good fix by dropping in some photos, but apparently I'm losing audio feed when I do that. So I apologize. I apologize. All right. Let me know if I have come back. I think the problem, or one of the problems, is that everyone in the world is on the internet right now. Am I right? Everyone in the world is looking to the computer to entertain us, to connect us, to help our children do their schoolwork. And so, you know, I'm going to chalk it up to that. But, oh, good. You can see and hear. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you sticking around. Okay, so the cross stitch pillow kit, at least hopefully you got to see those images that I was showing, even though you couldn't hear what I was saying. But what I was saying was this kit that we have comes with a pillow blank, a linen pillow blank. It comes with all of those great Sulky Petite threads that you saw in that image, a pack of needles, and a really high quality German wooden embroidery hoop. Now, getting into cross stitch does not require this huge investment. You don't have to spend a ton of money, and these cotton petites are super affordable. So you could grab a kit and create this pillow And I'm not sure if I said this before or after I dropped in that picture, but spending the time on a large scale cross stitch project like this, it really does just get you in the zone. It takes your mind off of things. All you have to remember is, that you're creating a cross stitch. And I'm going to go through kind of how to start a cross stitch pattern, and how to make sure that your threads don't get tangled on the wrong side. But part of the kit is this great pattern by Turtle Bunny Creations, and it comes in several different pages. So you will need to print out all those pages and kind of tape them together, just like if you were working on a digital garment pattern and you needed to tape those together. I think it's about 4 sheets that take up the front of the pillow. So it's not a whole lot of pasting together and things like that. You can use the pattern as is, and you can do counted cross stitch, meaning you're counting the woven open areas of the pillow fabric to see how many stitches over and down or over and above you need to go to create those cross stitches in the design. Or you can do what I am calling cheater cross stitch. I don't know if that's a thing. I don't know if I'm making it up right now, but what I'm calling cheater cross stitch is actually stamped cross stitch. So I've taken the design that the designer created and I printed it out onto Sulky Stick and Stitch. Now, Stick and Stitch is a stabilizer that has an adhesive backing to it. You could tell my ink was getting everywhere on my printer, so I apologize for that. Stick and Stitch is a stabilizer that has an adhesive backing, and it's fabric-like. It's not fabric. It washes away completely when you're done sewing with it, but it has kind of a woven fabric-like feel to it, and you can print directly onto it. So print out your 4 pages of the pattern, which come in the kit. Then you will peel away the paper backing and see it's sticky. Now you can stick that to the front of your pillow and do your cross stitches right through it. So you don't have to count over and count up and make sure that you have the right color and you haven't gone too far, because you're just going to follow the pattern right on the pillow. Isn't that awesome? Now, I will say the kit does not come with the stick and stitch. The kit is assuming that you are going to do traditional counted cross stitch. But if you want to do this cheater way, grab a pack of stick and stitch as well when you're buying the kit, and it'll be easy peasy. So I am going to show you this on just a piece of canvas fabric that I have, because not only can you do this on your pillow, but then you can use your pattern over and over again and stitch just about anything you like. And actually, now that I have cut this out, or now that I've taken the backing off, I'm actually just going to cut out this flower just so that it's easier to manage while I'm talking to you. So I'm going to cut that out, and then you'll just place it anywhere you want to onto your fabric. And this should help my bleeding ink issue that I have. Now, I do want to say I'll be doing a giveaway today. Last week we did a giveaway, and it was kind of a grab bag giveaway. And I ended up giving a sampler pack of 30 weight cotton blendables for best used for quilting, in my opinion, to Deb Kirchheim, who is a top Sulky fan. Thank you very much. And her name was totally randomly chosen to win that. So congratulations, Deb. Today we will have another giveaway, and I will be announcing that momentarily. So make sure that you're commenting on the post, liking, sharing, even if it's just you telling me how bad the audio is. I want to hear from you. All right, so I have threaded my needle with 1 strand of the 12 weight cotton petites, just 1 strand, because, oh my goodness, I have so much ink on me, because 1 strand equals 2 strands of floss. And normally for this cross stitch pattern, you would use 2 strands of floss. So I've got my sulky cotton petites in the needle. And I took a little flower from that design. And I don't know if you could tell, but these crosses are very, very tiny. So my cross stitches are going to be super small. So I'm going to show you on a large scale how to do a modified pin stitch that you can use to start your cross stitch that sort of secures your back thread so that you don't have to worry about weaving it into thread tails or creating any knots. So to start your pin stitch, let's get organized here. You'll go stick your needle in from the back side. And I'm going to just pretend like I'm creating the hugest cross stitch so that you can see. I'm kind of holding that thread tail on the back side of the work. And let's say I should mark the X so you guys can see it. Let's say my X for my cross stitch is this big. All right, so that's a huge cross stitch to make. These, again, quite tiny. All right, now I've lost my needle. Here it is. I'm going up through the center of that cross stitch. Normally you would go from one lower corner to one upper corner and then to the opposite way. But for this starter pin stitch, I'm starting in the center of what that cross stitch would be. All right, holding on to my thread end. Now I'm going to go to the upper right edge or upper right corner of where that cross is. Then I'm going to go lower left and back to the center. And then same thing. Lower right, back into the center, and then upper right. Now this is just my starter cross stitch. You can see it looks exactly like a completed cross. However, I've actually effectively knotted, without using a knot, the back of my cross stitch. Now I can trim that close to where I started, and it'll be like an invisible stitch has started. Then you can continue along the line, going along to a full cross stitch, and then back up where that one is, and down. So you can see in a large scale, it's easy to kind of see where that pin stitch was, but in a small pattern like this, you will never notice that cross stitch that was done at the start. So that's a really good way of starting out your cross stitch. Now, you could start from the middle, work your way out. You could start in one corner, work your way down. It's completely up to you. All you need to remember is to go the same direction with your stitches so that they're kind of overlapping each other in the same way throughout your pattern. If one is overlapping in an opposite direction, it will stick out like a sore thumb. So that's really the only thing you need to figure out while you're doing it. So I've got a bunch of questions to address really quickly. Someone is asking, are the instructions in the kit? Yes, there are. There are instructions in the kit. The full cross stitch pattern is a downloadable with that kit purchase. So you will get the thread, the hoop, the pillow blank, and the pattern. It's a great price. Check it out. The link is in the comments. Let's see. Do you need Ada base for this? So that's the thing too. With a stamped cross stitch pattern using the stick and stitch, you don't need to use a fabric like Aida or a even weave linen to do your cross stitching, because you're going through that stick and stitch, and that is providing your squares for your pattern to follow. So that's what makes it so awesome to use this little cross stitch shortcut, because you can do it on any fabric you want. You can cross stitch your denim jacket without having to use that other fabric. Now, if you want to do traditional counted cross stitch, you would need a fabric where you can really easily see the weave of that fabric and know that it's a 28 count or a 32 count so that you can plan your design accordingly. There's a lot more information about that topic and more as they relate to cross stitching on our brand new YouTube video series called Intro to Cross Stitch. And we will put a link to that too. There's about 10 videos right now. There's a couple more in the queue. And right now, the videos are up on YouTube. They are on a playlist, so you can watch one after the other. I highly suggest, while you're waiting for your kit to arrive in the mail for your pillow, check out the video series and really, really get a great sort of introductory tutorial on cross stitching. It'll explain fabric. It'll explain using stick and stitch. It also goes into detail about working with unconventional materials. You might not think that you can incorporate metallic thread, for example, into your cross stitches, but you can actually take a metallic thread like Sulky Hollow Shimmer or Sulky Sliver and maybe pair 2 strands with your 1 strand of 12-weight cotton petites. And it looks so cool. It kind of twists and turns around the thread and gives a metallic sparkle to your cross stitches. And that's really fun. Also, using Sulky invisible thread when you're doing cross stitches to add embellishments. That's another really good tip that is presented in the video series. So I worked with a woman named Amanda May, and her floss tube channel is Ardith Designs. She is the cutest, bubbliest, most excited person about cross stitch, I think, on the planet. You guys will love learning from her because her enthusiasm is just infectious. And she's a great, great cross stitch expert. I in no way consider myself a cross stitch expert. I love doing these projects. I love, particularly now, having a little bit more time on my hands, even though I'm now dealing with being a teacher as well as working from home and having a bazillion things on my plate. Cross stitching just allows you to just chill out a bit, and you're working towards something that is so gratifying and satisfying when you finally finish and get to see that finished product. It's just one of the greatest things. Let's see if we've got any more questions. Oh, people are asking if it's beginner friendly. It is a very large scale project, I will say. You have to print out 4 8.5 by 11 pieces of the pattern to fill the entire front of the throw pillow. So it's an ambitious project, but I think that cross stitch can be done by any level of sewer, because really you just need to get the hang of forming those first cross stitches and understanding when and where to change your thread colors. And to me, that's probably the easiest entry into sewing, because you're understanding how stitches are formed, you're understanding how to start and end stitches, you're understanding, how colors work together, how to read a pattern. And it is very, very basic as far as concepts go. So I definitely think a beginner can tackle this, especially when you've got our YouTube series at your disposal to consult with at any time. The episodes are all laid out in obviously what you will learn. So it starts with gathering supplies. You might already have some of those supplies on hand that you need to start cross-stitching, because really, scissors, needle, some sulky cotton petites, you're good to go. You can cross-stitch with or without a hoop. I included a hoop with this kit because when you're working with a ready-made pillow, the hoop just helps you kind of contain everything. And since you've got to move around your stitches so much, if you want to start, let's say, with one color and do all the parts of one color at one time, using a hoop is going to allow you to get the nicest, most wrinkle-free, pucker-free end result. There are also tips that come with the instructions for the pillow on, let's say you do have puckering at the end. Let's say you pulled a little bit too taut on some of your thread ends, and as a result, you have some areas of puckering, even if you used a hoop, even if you use stick and stitch. Sometimes that can happen. There are tips that come with the kit for how to block out your pillow. Blocking out basically means you get it wet, you pin it to a surface like an ironing board, and you let it dry that way. And it kind of stretches while still relaxes the fabric, and it gets rid of all of those puckers. It's really great, and it's explained more with the kit. Let's see. Certainly not an expert. A lot of cuss words going on. Isn't that the truth with anything that we're trying? You know, I've been sewing, I want to say, my entire life. I remember first sewing when I was 6 years old, and first seriously sewing, meaning actually making something from start to finish by myself, when I was 8 years old. I still don't consider myself a full-on expert or, you know, having just conquered it all, because there's always something new to learn from someone else who has discovered a better technique or just more exciting embellishments. So, you know what? All we can do is just keep on trying. Keep on keeping on. All right. Someone says it sounds hard. It sounds like an expert level. You know, another thing to think about is if creating these tiny little cross stitches seems intimidating or a little bit more difficult to manage, you can also treat each cross stitch. Instead of using the smallest square, you can block them out into a grouping of 4 squares. So I hope that makes sense. You can do one cross stitch across 4 squares instead of a tiny cross stitch in one area, and I'll show you what I mean. So let's say I'm starting out here on the edge. I'll try to do this so you can see. I can create an X. Let me make sure I have one strand going on. I can create an X. I need to snip my previous thread here. There we go. I can create an X in that tiny little square that's on the pattern. Also, see how I'm not using a hoop? It's because I'm using very stable canvas fabric, and I have that stick and stitch that's acting as my stabilizer. So here's my first cross stitch. See how it is in a tiny, tiny little square area. If that's just too much for me to handle or manage, I can instead do my cross stitch spanning 4 squares. Not only is that going to be easier to manage, especially for a beginner, but I'm going to finish in half of the time. So now I have that stitch spanning 4. Can you all see that? So you can kind of choose how big you want those X's to be or those cross stitches to be. And that might be a little bit easier for a beginner to sort of negotiate. But it certainly is addictive. I can't just sit here and not complete another X. But I absolutely love the look of it. It kind of gives like a vintage quality also to things. I'm going to go back and show you just a picture of that kit again, knowing that you can't hear me for it, so I'll be quick about it. But I just want you to see again the elements of the kit. All right, so there are elements of the kit. And now I'll show you some close-ups of those tiny, tiny little cross stitches. So you can see that, you know, it takes a lot of time and dedication for that large scale pattern to create. It just does. You know, I also love doing cross stitch machine embroidery patterns or machine embroidery designs. Did you all know that you could do cross stitch using your embroidery machine? It's amazing. Those designs actually take a lot of stitches and a lot of time as well, but not nearly as much time as it does doing it by hand. But again, doing it by hand, you're getting in the zone, you know, you're allowing yourself to really connect with your piece and make a lot of different choices that a digitized machine embroidery design wouldn't allow for. So, okay, also, I'm just going to show you what our YouTube series looks like. So when you get to the Sulky YouTube channel, if you look for Intro to Cross Stitch, this is what you will see. And on there, I don't know, I had to go away from the photo so quickly, but on that image, you can see there are a couple of spools of Sulky Petites. One is a blendable. Sulky Cotton Petites also come in blendable varieties, which lead to a whole slew of creative possibilities when you're doing cross stitch. Also in that image is what is called a needle minder. Have you guys heard of a needle minder? Has anyone? Okay, a needle minder is basically like a decorative little magnet that you can put near or on your hoop or on your pillow in this example, and it's going to always keep track of your needle. You put your needle on the little magnet and it holds it there while you're, you know, going to grab the next color or working through your design. And obviously I need one right now because I have no idea what has happened to the needle that I was working with. It was in my piece and now it has fallen out. So a needle minder is what I'm going to give away today. So one lucky person who is commenting on this post, liking, sharing, that type of thing, is going to win one of the needle minders that we offer at sulky.com. And I'm going to show you a picture of it. Again, there is no audio while I show photos. And this is actually kind of a montage photo of some extra things that you might like to use for your cross stitch projects. It shows Sulky Hollow Shimmer Metallic Thread, which I just mentioned is a great addition to your other threads while you're cross stitching. It also shows the Cotton Petites blendables that I was just talking about, invisible thread for adding embellishments, and then you'll see the really cute magnetic needle minder. It's actually called a needle nanny. Isn't that cute? And it's in the shape of a little thread spool. So I'll show it to you. That's going to be our freebie today. Here you go. That is the cutest little needle nanny, isn't it? Don't you love that? A couple people are saying, yes, I would love to have that. I use my needle all the time. I mean, even if you don't do handwork, having that right next to your sewing machine for needles that you're switching out for different things like machine embroidery or quilting, it's a great little tool to have. So that's today's giveaway. I hope you enjoy. I hope you guys loved hearing about cross stitch and all of the products that we have for cross stitchers and cross stitching endeavors, because I'm just really glad to see cross stitch projects popping up more and more and more. A few years ago, there were a lot of sort of subversive cross stitch designs that were getting a lot of engagement on social media for obvious reasons. And I thought, ooh, that's cool. Cross stitch might be coming back or getting, some new life breathed into it. But once you start going on YouTube and you check out the Sulky YouTube Intro to Cross Stitch video series, you'll see lots more of really inspiring pieces. And I hope it gets you, raring to go and excited about doing some cross stitch yourself, because it's really, really cool. Someone says they can't find their scissors either. I sympathize with that. You know what else we have at sulky.com? We'll put it in the comments. We have these little scissor charms. Have you ever thought of a scissor charm? At first I was like, who needs a scissor charm? What is that for? Well, if you've ever gone to a class or even just around your house and you don't want someone using your fabric scissors for something else, put this little scissor fob on there. And not only will you always know if someone else is using your scissors in your house, but you'll be able to spot them a lot easier. So that's a really cool product that I happen to like that is available at sulky.com. Small magnets also work. That is fantastic. All right, so just to review, please check out our brand new cross stitch kit. It is so cute. It will keep you busy in these, crazy times that we're living in right now. It'll bring a little bit of spring into your life. It's got the cutest little spring scene on it with the birds and the flowers and the great pastel colors. And it's also a great kind of neutral piece. I think it's going to fit right in with pretty much anybody's decor. So check that out. Check out our cross stitch YouTube channel, or playlist rather, on the Sulky channel. I could get that right. And thanks everybody for bearing with me with our technical difficulties today. Hope to get all those bugs worked out so that we can enjoy each other, enjoy each other's company during this time and all times, and keep those questions going, because we go live pretty much every week, and we try to keep it on Tuesdays, and I announce the time on Facebook, so be sure to pay attention to our Sulky Facebook page for the times that we're going to go live. And we'll also notify you via email. So join our newsletter list, and you'll always be notified not only for new products that are coming out, new fun things that Sulky is up to, but also when we are going live on Facebook. So that's another good thing to sign up for. So thanks everybody for joining me today, and we will see you next week on So What?